Hello and welcome to iBuzz. I'm your host Nosheen Bukhari, bringing you the most exciting entertainment news from showbiz world. In today's news, we will be discussing some hots and nots and some movie reviews. First things first, let me quickly take you to the top stories of the day. Pete Davidson spoke to Eminem after SNL impersonation. Arts figures criticize plan to cut university funding for creative subjects. Childish Gambino sued by rapper over This Is America copying claim. Ed Sheeran to sponsor Ipswich Town's t-shirts. And Victoria Beckham says that Spice Girls inspired Beyoncé Knowles. And now moving to the top story of the day. Arts figures criticize plans to cut university funding for creative subjects in UK. Singer Jarvis Cocker and actor Maxine Peake are among those to have criticized a plan to cut government funding for art subjects at university by almost 50%. Art courses are not among the official strategic priorities, with a cut from a 36 million to 19 million pounds proposed next year. To discuss this further, we have Andy Jones with us, who is an entertainment journalist. Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, the plans for 50% funding cut to art subjects at universities, how catastrophic this can be for the faculty and deserving students?
Well, as you know, Britain has struggled a great deal in the pandemic, like absolutely every country in the world. And so they've had to cut their cloth accordingly. And the British government has announced that there'll be a 50% cut in subjects like funding for subjects like music, drama, dance, performing arts, media and design, as these subjects are not in their strategic priorities. Education Minister Gavin Williamson has said that they have to spend the money on more important things. And as you can imagine, anyone in Hollywood and drama doesn't like being told that they aren't important. And so there's been a huge outcry as to the cuts in funding. The British actress Maxine Peake has said that these funding cuts are awful and will restrict access to poorer students. Pulp singer Jarvis Cocker has said that it's always the arts and drama departments that are cut, and it will prevent those from poorer backgrounds, the kind of diverse backgrounds that we need getting into music and drama. Because as you know, the same in Britain, you need to have many years at the learning your skills and learning your game in arts and drama and music and design and literary skills before you can accelerate forwards. If you can't afford to spend sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 years pursuing low-paid parts or writing novels for no money before they're published, then you can't access these areas. One of Barack Obama's favourite authors, a Booker Prize winner, Bernardine Evaristo, describes the plan as catastrophic and an awful assault on the arts in universities. And this speaks to a much bigger problem in Britain, and I dare say in sort of the arts globally, in America and Hollywood as well. We have a real issue in Britain where those from very wealthy backgrounds have a significantly better chance of getting forwards in the arts. You've only got to look at recent Oscar winners, Oscar nominees, Benedict Cumberbatch, Eddie Redmayne, Olivia Colman, Terry Mulligan, Riz Ahmed, all have very expensive educations that aren't necessarily open to everyone. And you see that played out across the music industry as well. Florence and the Machine, Mumford and Sons, Lily Allen, Radiohead, even Adele went to a paid-for performing arts school. And so many people are like, well, we need a variety of working class, different voices, different backgrounds. We saw Daniel Kaluuya, who was raised in the council estate in Camden. He was a recent Oscar nominee at the recent Oscar ceremony. And we need these sort of people coming through. Otherwise, we don't have all of these different voices and backgrounds and all of these different ideas. We need, in order for us to stop being bored of the same sort of plays and the same sort of costume dramas and the same things again and again, we need different stories from different backgrounds. And unfortunately, those kind of things need funding and money.
Right. And do you think that these priorities have been exclusively changed due to COVID lockdown? Because now we see universities not functioning in the same manner they used to. I mean, their focus is more on online classes. A lot of faculties were even shut down. So do you think that could be a possible reason as well?
Absolutely. University College London will lose £8 million alone from these latest cuts. UCL being a place where a lot of performing arts students have gone. What I'd say is this: in some ways, having all your lessons online is an accelerator for students who can't afford to go, because hopefully in years to come, if lessons are online, they're more affordable, they're more accessible, they can be learned second and third hand because they can be recorded and played back. However, students in the UK currently, and I lecture at some universities in the UK myself in journalism, they're paying an awful lot of money for a university experience and they're not really experiencing anything. They're either living in closed halls of residence where they're not allowed to mix and circulate, they're not allowed to meet their peers or any of their lecturers, or they're learning from home on a laptop. And as far as many of them are concerned, you almost could learn as much from Pakistan as you could in central London, because you're not allowed to physically go to these halls of residence, you're not allowed to physically go to these places of learning. And for things like creativity in the arts and drama, how can you learn a skill like that when you can't even get on a stage? You can't have any face-to-face interaction with your teachers, you can't mix with the other people that you're writing a drama with, or you're learning to play with, or recording a piece of music. So much of what we can do is digital now, but equally human interaction is a huge immovable part of the creative process. And so it's been hit both in terms of the pandemic, in terms of access, and hit in terms of funding. And now it's planned that it's going to be hit even further. And as we've seen, Britain makes a huge amount of what you call sort of working class or provincial dramas that have been hugely successful. From sort of Peaky Blinders to Line of Duty to Shameless, and all of these sort of incredible programs that we make that are uniquely British. And we can only make these things if we have a variety of backgrounds, a variety of performers, a variety of voices and accents. One of our biggest exports has been, Stephen Graham, who starred in The Irish, the Martin Scorsese film, and so it's been, actors like him are harder and harder to get hold of in some ways, because they don't have the access. You have to pay a huge amount of money to go to an arts and drama college now, and then spend those years probably living in somewhere expensive like London, where you don't have an immediate access to funding. You're having to pay performing small roles that probably aren't paid, and to do that you need rich parents.
Right. So, Andy, there was this remarkable statement given by the set designer S. Devlin, who referred that artists, musicians, and designers should be trained in order to maintain the cultural national health, which is also important. So do you think that government has some alternative methodology to apply, or there is nothing in store to offer?
I mean, the government said that these subjects aren't in its strategic priorities. So, I mean, that tells you everything. And I understand, let's be honest, our National Health Service, everything has taken a massive hit.
So, Andy, there was this remarkable statement given by the set designer S. Devlin, who referred that artists, musicians, and designers should be trained in order to maintain the cultural national health. I mean, what he means is that cultural health is as important as physical health. Do you think that government has some alternative plans to offer, or there's nothing in store?
There's nothing in store. The government has said that this is not among its strategic priorities. And whilst you can understand that at a time of pandemic, that things that are seen as secondary, like arts and drama, are cut, but equally, as Devlin says, it's important for people's health that we have these enjoyable things, that we have these creative outlets. Human nature decides that we need things other than a desk job and family life and all the other things, and that's the same the world over, and we do have to look after these things. Boris Johnson himself is a big fan of the arts, and he very often makes references to anything from sort of classical literature to theatre plays and film references. However, these things cost money. These actors have to be trained, these writers have to have something to live on, and ultimately these things have to be paid for, and very often they're paid for at the public purse. The huge problem as well is that the film industries and the music industries don't often support their own. You know, you have huge multi-million-pound record labels, you have mass grossing films, and a lot of this money then doesn't go back into the industry. It goes then to investors, and I don't think that the creative arts has always done a great job of supporting itself, and I don't think the government has always done a great job of supporting the creative arts, and that is something that's going to suffer over the next few years. But and we'll see the damage of that in years and years to come, because the talent that is 16, 17 years old now that might be going into arts will now have to go into something else that you can't afford it, and then that will be a poor harvest that we'll reap over many, many years to come.
Right. And do you think that 36 million to 19 million proposed amount next year, do you think that it can make the government change its decision? There is still room for this decision to be reconsidered, because like you said, that we can see the damage coming in the years, or probably not in the years, in the coming months. The industry has already suffered a lot. So do you think that there is still a room, or this has been finalized already?
I imagine this has been finalised. I mean, simply the government will simply say that there's no money, although Boris Johnson himself has been embroiled in a saga as to who paid for the expensive redecoration of his flat. There's been all sorts of scandals in the UK about how health contracts were awarded to friends of the government. The government is populated with men of a certain age who all went to Eton or the finest universities. And the class divide in Britain in terms of access, not just talking about arts and drama here, but talking about the music industry and talking about public life and politics and academia, people who the taste makers of the nation, has never been wider. You see less and less visibility of those from working class backgrounds. Even the Labour Party, which is supposedly the party of the people, very often it's stuffed with people from a certain educational group, and I think people don't feel very represented, and I think they are seeing that in terms of what TV shows they watch. They're seeing that in terms of the music stars that are around, and they're seeing that in the politicians that represent them. In order to accelerate in these professions, you probably need to come from a wealthy background, and you need to have had years at a music college, or been able to pursue that skill somewhere in London where you need a lot of fun.
Right. So we hope that the government prioritizes arts as well as, other departments. Andy, thank you very much indeed for your time. That was Andy Jones on the funding cuts from the UK government on art subjects. Moving to other story details of the day. Pete Davidson has recalled his nerves when talking to Eminem after he impersonated the rapper during a recent SNL skit. In March, Davidson donned Batman and Robin-style costume for a parody of Eminem's song Without Me, which also acted as somewhat of an explainer for the recent NFTs trend. Weeks later, Davidson faced the prospect of finally discussing the skit with the rap icon himself. Eminem himself recently branched out into NFTs and made $1.78 million from his first cut collection, Shady Con. Childish Gambino is being sued for copyright infringement over his Grammy Award-winning rap song, This Is America. A rapper who performs as Kid West claims the song copied his track Made in America, which was released 2 years ago. The lyrical theme, content, and structure of the two songs' choruses are glaringly similar, he said in court documents filed in New York. Childish Gambino, aka Donald Glover, has yet to respond to the claims. Ed Sheeran has been named as the new shirt sponsor for Ipswich Town Football Club. The singer, who lives in Suffolk and is a Tractor Boys fan, has signed a 1-year deal to sponsor the shirts of the men's and women's first teams. The mysterious logo on the shirt features a mathematical symbol and the word tour. And before Destiny's Child became famous, there were the Spice Girls. And according to Victoria Beckham, they inspired Beyoncé Knowles. In an interview, Victoria told that she met Beyoncé a few years ago, and she actually told her that it was the Spice Girls that inspired her and made her do what she wanted to. Sources, however, have also reached Beyoncé to seek her response on this. Whether it's Beyonce or Victoria, we love both, no matter what. Stay tuned, we will be right back after a quick short break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. In this segment, we will be reviewing the 2018 comedy movie, The Instant Family. The 2018 drama starring Mark Wahlberg left the viewers with a lot of mixed feelings. To discuss this further, we have Humay Wasim with us, who is a comedian and a writer. Humay, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so let's talk about the plot first. I mean, how strong do you see the structure was for this movie?
So personally, I loved this movie. I thought the message was really beautiful. As you mentioned, it stars Rose Byrne and Mark Wahlberg, who are brilliant actors. So the plot goes something like this. Pete and Ellie Wagner, they're a middle-aged couple who decide that they want to adopt a child. But their expectations are that they're going to get this cute little baby, and it's just going to be all cuddles and hugs after that. But they're in for a roller coaster ride because they end up adopting a teenage girl. And she comes with a package deal that she comes with two younger siblings as well, and they're a handful. So that's the plot.
Right, and don't you think that Mark Wahlberg has been, already doing such kind of roles previously? So do you think that this was something overly done by Mark Wahlberg? I mean, his character was overly used as a father in this movie?
I think that's one of the reasons why they probably kept him, because he emanates that fatherly aura. So I think he was a good fit for this role. Yeah.
Also, they say that Octavia Spencer, her addition has already made the movie look brilliant. Otherwise, the story lacked, a lot of plot, a lot of balance. So, how do you see this?
Personally, like I said, I love the movie and I love the plot. Yeah, there could have been some improvements. There could have been more, I would say, realistic moments. But generally, I think it was a brilliant plot, and all the actors did perform really, really well.
And also, Pete and Ellie, they are real-life characters. I mean, Sean Anders, who is the writer, the co-writer to the movie, this is his actual story, which he turned into a film. So, do you think that? Yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so do you think that there could have been more to be added? There would have been like more room from the real life story to be added in this movie?
I think because it comes from a place so personal for Sean Anders, there must have been real life anecdotes. And also there are many, many instances which are so heartwarming. They share their joys, their lows, all the difficult moments of parenting. These kids, they're coming from a very difficult past. They have their temper tantrums. Lizzie is in her rebellious teenage phase, so you see lots of like sneaking out, hanging out with the wrong crowd. But Pete and Ellie Wagner are always there to rescue these kids. They're there to protect them, they're there to love them. Yes, it's very, very difficult for them initially because, in their mind, there was this very rosy picture that we're going to get these kids and it's just going to be walks in the park and, at the beach or whatever. But actually, these kids are a handful and it's very, very difficult.
Right. And Humay, your thoughts on the character of Lizzie and how her character develops, like from being a handful teenager to being a responsible elder sibling. How do you see her character development?
So again, I think her character is portrayed in a very realistic manner because initially, I think she is very well put together. Like even though she comes from such a difficult past, her mother was a drug addict who's currently serving time in jail. You still see that she's very level-headed and grounded. So the first time I saw her, I didn't think that this could be a kid who would come from an orphanage or foster home. So she has a very good head on her shoulders, but initially she's very mistrusting of the parents because, kids who come from foster families, they're very used to rejection. So she's untrusting, but over time you see her opening up, you see her protective of her younger siblings. And she's in a very challenging situation, but she just musters the courage to go through it. Yeah.
Right. And also, may tell us that do you see that there was a balance in this adoption comedy, a balance between sentiments and satire?
Yeah. This movie is a dramedy, which is a drama comedy. I think that when you're approaching topics that are so difficult in real life, especially, it's easy to inject comedy over there because, I think a lot of these issues are very, what's the word? They're very relative. Like you can relate to them. Even if you look in your own household, I'm sure there are instances where, somebody's younger brother would end up getting into an accident, and there's this one scene where he ends up drilling his own foot, and then he has to be rushed to the hospital, ICU, and that brings the family together. So they're very realistic scenes as well.
Right, and also their focus on the failed system of foster homes. This was the first time we saw, this topic being touched in a movie.
Yeah, I mean, the foster care system is such a complex system. I don't think you can just call it failed. The issue is that, like in the beginning, the warden says to the couples who are interested in adopting, she says that a lot of people return these kids, unfortunately, and a lot of the times the kids' problems end up creating problems in the couple's marriage, and sometimes it can even lead to divorce. So this is a very, very difficult situation that is created. It's not easy to take a child who is coming with their own developed personality, with their own traumas, and to sort of love them and heal them and get them back into a place where they can be adults who can flourish in life.
Also, Humay, some critics have said that instant family reduces the complexity, pain, and joy of parenthood when they compare it to the real life story. Do you agree with that?
I wouldn't agree with that. I think it was maybe 1.5-hour movie, and I think they did a good job of wrapping that up and putting that into putting the whole life scenario into that 1.5-hour length. Yes, it could have been more complex for sure, but I think more such movies need to be produced in Hollywood, because, as you know, we live in times where the family system, especially in the West, is really dwindling. People have these unrealistic expectations that it's just going to be a very rosy, idealistic picture, but it's not. And such movies give us that very valuable learning lessons.
Right. Talking about the cast, the actors and their characters, which one of the characters did you enjoy the most, and which one of these were your least favorite?
I think Rose Byrne did a marvelous job of playing a mother, and very, very there's a very human element to her character. I also like this one character, very interesting. It's played by comedian Eliza Schlesinger. So she comes to the adoption home looking for this perfect kid. So she wants the kid to be of African American descent. She wants the kid to be 6 feet, and she wants the kid to be an athlete. So basically she's looking for a kid who can give her this recognition in life, which is a very selfish way of looking at it. But it's also very relatable, because these days we all want this perfect package product, human being or child, in this particular case. And that just, pops the bubble towards people's, unrealistic expectations.
Right. Your 3 major reasons for recommending this movie, because it's the weekend and we also we always come up with a movie as a recommendation for our viewers. So if you recommend this movie to the viewers, tell us the 3 major reasons. Why would you do that?
Well, firstly, I think it was very entertaining. There were some scenes that were just laugh out loud funny, and then there were also scenes that made you cry. So for me, a movie that takes you on this roller coaster ride, that's amazing. Secondly, the message is very strong, that kids who come from difficult families, they deserve a chance towards unconditional love, and they deserve a chance to a future where they can flourish and be cared for. Thirdly, I think it would give a great learning message for people who want to be parents, for people who want to get married, or even people who live in difficult households, because they can learn a lot from it. The universality of having to go through a difficult family situation, that can really give you a sense of relief and comfort.
Right. And Humay, again, there are some mixed feelings about this movie. Some people say that the director's statement, Instant Family, is a movie with good intentions, but it is uneven in tone. What are your thoughts on this?
Uneven in tone, but with good intentions. I would say that yes, I mean, with any movie, there's always that room for improvement. One thing I think that could have been better were, initially you see Rose Byrne as kind of like a careless mom, but then later on you see her very quickly switch from that role to a very, very caring mother. So maybe that could be improved upon, but then again, that also shows the very fleeting nature of human beings, that we think we're one thing, but actually when you're put in a situation like this, which involves feelings and emotions, there's a side to us that even we don't know exists. So we discover parts of ourselves. So I think that could also be taken in a very positive manner.
Humay, thank you very much indeed for your time and discussion.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope you guys really enjoyed this movie.
That was Humay Wasim with her review on the movie The Instant Family. And that is it from today's episode. Don't forget to share your feedback on the social media link mentioned down below. We'll see you next week. Until that time, take care and goodbye.